I think people underestimate how much energy it really takes to be successful. Being successful isn't like work-life balance and like I work 4 hours a day and I go to the spa and I come home and like, I mean, if you've made it and that's your life, I mean, amazing, like congratulations. But if you're still climbing, people underestimate like how much effort it takes to climb and how much effort it takes to get to that next rung. It's a combination of believing in yourself. It's a combination of knowing what your strengths are and applying them. And then it's a combination of just having a sheer force of energy and will to make it happen, you know? And if you do those three things, you'll arrive somewhere. And it may not be where you thought you were going to end up, but you'll arrive eventually.
Welcome to And Then I Did This. Prepare to be inspired as we celebrate the unique journeys of individuals who've had the courage to break free and live life on their own terms. Their lives prove that you truly can be free to live your best and most authentic life. Let's get to it. Andrew, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days.
Lou Ray, thank you so much for having me. It's been a while since we reconnected, but I'm so glad to see you. So, greetings from New York City. I don't live here, I'm visiting, but I now live in Auckland, New Zealand.
Wow.
And I moved to Auckland in October. In September, I married my wife, who is originally from New Zealand. And we decided we wanted to have a family in New Zealand. And,
cool.
you know, I've had the chance to visit it before we moved. And, you know, I really wanted to come to New Zealand and use a lot of the skills that I've created in the US from operating businesses, starting startups, and as an investor in startups on the other side of the table. I wanted to bring those talents, those skills, and that network to New Zealand. And so we decided to do it. So
that is so awesome. So I can't believe you moved to New Zealand. That is such a big move and so exciting on all the life changes. So let's rewind, because I know when we initially met, I was in the stages of launching the blockchain startup that I was working on, and you were in the digital agency space, and you had your hands in all kinds of initial startup opportunities with investors, et cetera. So rewind, because you've definitely not taken the traditional 9-to-5 career path, which I think is so inspiring. Share with people your journey a bit. How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, it all started with music when I was a kid. Music was like my first love. I was a singer and a songwriter growing up. And then I got really into recording music. So I got an audio set up and started in some microphones and started recording it. My friends and I at the time said, let's start a record label. Like, we really like recording. Like, we can curate all these different artists and record them. And so we started producing acts when we were like 16, 17 years old. And that was in Michigan. So yeah, it all started off with like a extreme amount of passion time, because, you know, you're in high school and not working adult. But yeah, I spent all my free time when I wasn't working, when I wasn't at school. I was recording bands, I was singing, we were playing shows, we were putting on shows, we were printing merch, we were selling merch. I mean, we were, you know, we were hustling. That's how it all started. And then I got accepted to the University of Michigan Music School, and I was studying sound recording. It's called the Performing Arts Technology Department at Michigan. So that summer I went and worked for a record producer in Los Angeles the summer after my freshman year. And I had a friend in town, and we had this idea for buying stock in a band on a website, on having a stock exchange for artists, right? So we pitched the recording producer. His name's Evan Frankfurt, wonderful man. We pitched him on the idea, and he called me that night. I remember standing in my uncle's kitchen. He called me that night and said, I can't stop thinking about your idea. I want to be involved. I want to be in.
Wow.
And this is the same guy who, when listening to a bunch of my demos and stuff I was recording and whatever, it was the same guy that was like, you know, Andrew, you're really not rock and roll. Like, your parents love you. You grew up on a cul-de-sac. Like, you're going to a great college. Like, you're just not rock and roll, man. Like, you're just, it's just not enough, you know? I mean, and he grew up in Hollywood and was around artists his whole life. So this whole, like, let's be an entrepreneur thing in music. That was much more something that was befitting of me than like, being on Skid Row and being a rock band singer, recording producer, whatever. So that was kind of that's when I really first took flight. Was somebody believed in me. Somebody came into my sphere, I wasn't afraid to pitch the idea. I wasn't afraid to say, hey, like, what if we did something like this? Like, what if this existed? Right. But he was the one that really pushed me. And so that was 2007. We put together an LLC. We started writing a business plan. Like, this is all like pre-Y Combinator being what it is. And before there was accelerators and before there was all these people writing about investing in startups and all that stuff. So it was before all that.
Right.
So we raised a round of financing and we moved to LA in 2010. I actually decided not to graduate from school and we all moved to LA because I was working on this business, my band stock, right?
Right.
Well, we ran out of money and we couldn't get to product market fit and we couldn't raise more money. So we kind of had to just, say, okay, this is a 4.5-year learning lesson. And we all got jobs in LA. So went and worked for a company called Groove Shark. I was the head of marketing for a company called Mobile Roadie. And then I was a product manager at a Full Screen, which ultimately ended up getting purchased by Otter Media and AT&T. And then I went back to school to finish my degree because I decided I didn't want to be a music tech person forever.
Right.
And I decided to start another business because I can't be in college without starting a business. Like I can't just be in class and like enjoy myself. Right? So my brother and I started snapsuits.com, which was custom suits for $250 delivered in 14 days. We built up that business over the course of a couple of years. I graduated, moved back out to LA because that's where my network was. So I said, hey, I'm going to try my hand at this venture capital thing for a while. So I started working for a family office in Los Angeles called Membrane Ventures. And today they're still investing and just running their deals for them. I was looking at their deal flow and they have such amazing deal flow. And so I got to see on the investor side of the table what it's like when you're seeing a lot of really, really high-end deal flow.
Right.
And I said, wow, being an investor is pretty cool. I kind of want to do this over the suit thing.
Right.
And so I got introduced to Eric Huberman at Hawk Media. At the time, his business was exploding and he was doing some investing as well. So they brought me on board to run their investments at Hawk Media.
Oh, very cool.
And so that's sort of where we got to when I met you. I was running investments at the media agency and we had our own venture capital fund. So 30 million under management, did that for about 7 years. So yeah, that gets us up to the timeline. I hope I was fast enough.
So when you say high-end deal flow, walk through that.
Sure. There's deals everywhere. There's startups everywhere, right? But those really, really good entrepreneurs, those really, really good investors, those really, really accomplished, really high-end deals, the ones that people wish they could invest in, but they don't have access to, right? When you see those really amazing world-class entrepreneurs, because you don't meet them at a pitch event, in Los Angeles or something, they're not there. They're using their networks, right?
Right.
So it's about seeing really, really awesome deals that other people didn't have access to.
So interesting. So you're in New Zealand and now what are you up to?
Yeah. So I have a business called Seed Excel and our main product right now is called Pitch Perfect. I do a one-on-one workshop with entrepreneurs to help them with their pitch deck. I wanted to find something that was very, very productized. Like what can I do that's different than what everyone else can do? What's my superpower? Right. And it's language around fundraising, it's deck building, it's having a plan for going out to investors. And so I liken it to like urgent care. I'm not doing open heart surgery. Right. It doesn't cost $1 million. You're coming to urgent care and you need help. You need help articulating why your business is investable. Right. So most people make a pitch deck and they think like, okay, here's what I do. Here's my customer and here's my revenue model and here's this. And that's all great. But why is this investable?
Right.
And so there's a translation event that has to happen between here's why my business is investable and this is what we do.
Yes.
Right? And so when I was an investor on the other side of the table, I was always sitting there translating in my mind for the entrepreneurs in real time, right? Like, well, you say this, but what you really mean is this. And so I would just kind of do that naturally. So I decided, you know what? I want to help founders in New Zealand. I want to help founders throughout the world really pitch better. And so I can do that in 90 minutes. You can sign up for an intro call on my website and to see if it's a fit, because I also want to make sure that it's a fit, that it's a two-way fit. There's some projects I can't help people pitch, and that's fine. So we don't promise introductions. We don't do design. We just do content. Like, what does your deck say? And what are the right words? And how is it structured? And we'll get through the whole thing. And you'll have a much better way of getting in front of investors that you want to talk to and be able to translate your business into investor speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Getting the story right is the key, and making sure
it's narrative, people, data, dollars. That's it. Those are the four pillars of any investment pitch, because if you can't translate your business into people, data, and dollars, what are we doing here? And so I'm really big on making sure the pillars of your business make sense.
There are so many people with great ideas who don't know how to formulate the story. So that is definitely a need, and you can do that anywhere. All you need is this setup and the person on the other end, and you can definitely help people who have great ideas. And
this is about what you say and how you say it. Yeah. And most founders, 99%, 99.5%, almost all founders can just pitch a little bit better.
Right. Absolutely.
And most need to pitch a lot better. Right. That's why I exist.
And people get so close to their idea and their concept that they can't see the forest for the trees. So that's the other beauty of, I think, what you're doing. So I'll definitely put a link in the notes below this recording so people can find you easily.
Great.
There aren't a lot of people that know how to do that.
It comes very naturally to me because I've been on the other side of the table. I've also been on the other side of the table as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And you really need an outside opinion to ask you, okay, so what? The product does this. So what?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's what I try to teach people.
Yeah, I totally get it. So as far as lessons you've learned along the way, because obviously you were not afraid to just go after what you thought you wanted to do at that moment, and then you were able to pivot. What are some of the lessons and life lessons you would give people? Because there are lots of people who I know right now feel trapped in a 9-to-5 job, or feel like there's no way, they've got kids and a mortgage. And what advice would you give people who might want to pivot into something else?
So Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, is like a really good kind of encapsulation of something that I think about, which is called signal. I really believe that things pull you in different directions in life. You can push as much as you want, but things will just kind of come together at this moment. And you're like, oh, this is happening right now, right? Like this is a pull moment, not a push moment, right? And so when you're thinking about getting out of that stability or that 9-to-5, that thing that is really solid or whatever, and you're looking to take that risk, to take that jump, right? You really have to think about, what is the signal coming back to me that says, like, this is a go, this is a good idea, right? And it's the same thing I talk about with founders, where I'm like, go talk to your customers. Like, you got a thing. Like, go talk to who your customer is going to be. Do they want to buy it? How much will they pay for it? If the answer is like, no, I don't want it. I don't want to pay for it. I'll use it for free, but I won't pay for it. Whatever. It's like, you don't have a thing if people don't want to pay for it on some level, right?
Absolutely.
And so where is your signal coming from? It could be an investor or someone in your family. Oh, wow. Like, hey, this is really cool. I would invest in this. Would you take an invest? Like where is the signal coming from? Right. And so I think people need to think really hard. If they don't have any signal, then you have to think about, how do we generate signal? Right. You've heard about entrepreneurs that have been relentless with their perseverance towards finding that signal. Right. And that's the difference. You know, they hung in there long enough. They eventually found the right people. They eventually created their own luck because they were in the game long enough. They pushed their way into that signal that then pulled them, right?
Right.
So that's my advice, is to make sure you're finding that signal, the things that are saying this is the right pathway to be on. Make sure you're listening.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because having tunnel vision, I mean, some people can get, to your point, caught up in, oh, I'm just going to do this thing regardless. There's one thing to have persistence. What you're saying is be connected with your gut intuition and listen to the signals, as you're calling them, the input and feedback from other people around you. Yeah.
As Matthew McConaughey calls it, green light.
Yes, right. Because if you go blindly off into the unknown, it's like that MVP. You have to have a minimal viable product and go out there and test it, make sure.
There's a reason. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. A reason to even do it. What is your vision going forward? How do you see yourself going forward and evolving?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think ultimately, as an entrepreneur, you also understand, you build this muscle of how to support entrepreneurs.
Right.
And so they're very different things. There's like, I run my own company, I make my own decisions, I hire and fire my own people, I manage my budget, whatever, right? I close the deals and I create everything, right? And then you have partners and you work with each other. And then there's, I want to support an entrepreneur, which is like, what do you need? And well, what if we did this? And hey, I want to go, hunt for you, right? And I think that when you're an investor, you really build a muscle, at least I did at my firm, for how to support entrepreneurs directly. And what do we need to do to support them? And how do we make these introductions? And hey, what if we thought about your pricing structure this way? And hey, let's introduce you to this investor or this, corporate entity that could buy from you or whatever, right? So I really feel like I'm on this planet to not only serve entrepreneurs, but also to serve people, and I believe that ideas and businesses, they kind of find you, right? Mm-hmm. So people ask me all the time, like, would you ever start another company again? Would you? And I'm like, if it presented itself to me, absolutely. Do I just have like 1,000 ideas like running around all the time? Yes, for sure. Like, of course, right? But I'm also not trying to generate signal for those ideas.
Right.
So for me, it's really about, I want to support entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, whether it's working directly for them, whether it's fractionally working for them, whether it's the pitch workshop that I do. I'm dedicating the next 10 years of my life to supporting entrepreneurs. And then after that, we'll see what happens. Right. You never know what kind of signal I might wake up with tomorrow or go to bed with tomorrow or whatever.
Right.
But I'm in the phase of my life where definitely supporting entrepreneurs right now is what I want to be doing.
So cool. It's so needed. When you think back to some of the biggest obstacles or challenges that you have faced on your journey of not going the traditional route, what would you say they were, and what were some things you did to overcome them?
Yeah, I think it's funny when you're an entrepreneur. There's so many things that happen existentially or otherwise. I think there's this part of you that has to really believe in yourself long term,
right?
And that everything's going to be okay tomorrow, even if it doesn't seem okay today.
Right.
And then you just have to rigorously apply yourself, burning the candle at both ends, doing everything you can to keep it alive, right? And I think people underestimate how much energy it really takes to be successful. Being successful isn't like work-life balance and like I work 4 hours a day and I go to the spa and I come home and like, if you've made it and that's your life, amazing. Like, congratulations. But if you're still climbing, like people underestimate like how much effort it takes to climb and how much effort it takes to get to that next rung, right? And so it's a combination of believing in yourself. It's a combination of knowing what your strengths are and applying them. And then it's a combination of just having a sheer force of energy and will to make it happen, you know? And if you do those three things, you'll arrive somewhere. And it may not be where you thought you were going to end up, but you'll arrive eventually. I think that those are the three things that I think about with overcoming challenges.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then everything changes too. When you like, I'm married now. And so now everything that happens to me also happens to us.
Right.
And that's a new dynamic, right? It's like, I can like be in the foxhole and like fight my way out or whatever. It's like, no, there's two of you there. So you got to make sure everyone is comfortable. Right. And then if you have a family and kids and a mortgage, there is all these, externalities and things to take care of. So you have to sort of balance out the risk and the opportunity. And you really have to look at those things. You really have to look at those things critically. And a lot of people, I've been definitely in the past, is you look way more rosy at the opportunity without thinking about the risks involved, right?
Right.
When you're an investor, you actually, that whole framework changes. It's what's the risk here?
Right. Absolutely.
Not what's the opportunity here. And then when both of those things combine, and you're stoked and you make an investment and you say, okay, I'm comfortable with the risk and I'm comfortable with the opportunity, right?
Right.
So you have to weigh those things. You have to weigh those things hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can't be overly opportunistic and you can't be overly pessimistic. You have to be somewhere in the middle, combining things and see where it goes.
Right. Absolutely.
And make pivots as they are needed. All of this is so much easier said than done. Of course, I feel like I'm speaking in platitudes, but there are days that I, wish I had a 9-to-5 and said, gosh, I wish I was an executive at a company making X and not being an entrepreneur, right? There are those days. And then there's days where you're like, this is why I love what I do. This is why I am where I am. Things ebb and flow.
It depends on the day, depends on the situation. I think I wish I was doing a 9-to-5. That would probably fleet very quickly by the time you didn't make it to lunch. Probably because there's so many.
Well, working for a startup is also different than working for like a company with 15,000 people.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the other thing that's so clear for me, because obviously I left New York in 2015 and have been on the entrepreneurial path since then, and discipline and focus is one of the other big things, more so now than ever with all the social media. There are all these things, attention grabbers that try to pull people's attention away from what they should be focused on. I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day, and I said, I don't go on social media to consume it. I go on to create and post something.
To create.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good reminder for anybody listening. How much time are you spending creating? And how much time are you spending consuming? We're meant to be creative beings and create things, not just be consuming content. So discipline, focus, staying away from the distractions, right? Right?
Yeah. And you have to also allow yourself to be distracted when the time is right as well. Because you have to put your foot off the gas sometimes. You have to breathe. You have to take your brain into another space so that it can take a little bit different form, think of things differently.
Absolutely.
So it's important to really have a balance.
You're so right.
But by the way, balance looks very different between each person, right? And so a 14-hour day for me twice a week is fine, but 7 days a week is not.
Right.
And it's just like, what's the balance look like? And you have to find that for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my personal belief is like the hustle culture isn't cool anymore. If you're focused and disciplined and you've got a clear path of where you're headed, just hustling, it's not sexy.
I had a mentor in between working as an investor at Hawk Media and creating Hawk Ventures with Eric and Tony, the partners. There's this moment where I had a mentor that was like, how long are you going to be hustling? Like, you shouldn't be hustling. Like, you should be creating systems that create wealth, not like scratching at at just the tiniest morsels, right? So
that's wisdom.
There's a ton of truth to that, and it was great. I loved hearing that in the moment because that again, signal, green light, that kind of pushed me to go pitch Eric and Tony. I'm like, well, let's start this $5 million fund. And then we did it, and we raised it, and we deployed it, and it's doing fantastically. Sometimes you need to think outside the box, think bigger, and get out of the hustle.
Absolutely. You have to unplug and get away. Even if you're in the middle of something and so like, I need to get this done. That's the time, probably the most, that you need to step away and gain perspective and then come back to it.
That's right.
So what final words of advice would you have for any of the either people out there who are starting something new, wanting to start something new, encouraging them to just go for it?
So what I will say is that, most of us are not Elon Musk's or Mark Zuckerberg's or most of us aren't those people. So don't compare yourself to them. That's just not fair, right? Most of us need to involve other people in what we're doing in order for it to be successful. And your job is to find people smarter than you, people faster than you, people with more connections than you, people who are more equipped in one way, shape, or form to be involved with what you're doing. And the best thing that you can do to level up on your business is to get other people involved that are amazing, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
you got to have your pitch deck and you got to have your logo. You got to have all this stuff, but get really good people involved with you. And if you can't, well, then maybe you need to change it.
Right.
What's not good enough that you can't get the quarterback of the football team, on your team.
Right.
You can't get the lead singer of the band in your band. That's the best one, right? So really think about the people in your organization. That's going to be one of the biggest drivers for your success is the people that you involve yourself with early on.
I think just pull in the right people. Right. So share again your website. So if somebody's wanting help with a pitch, Yep.
It's seedexcel.co.nz. In New Zealand, we say NZ. seedexcel.co.nz.
Oh, right.
People don't say that in the US, but that's the website.
And I will link it down below. Thank you so much for all the wisdom and insight.
Oh, absolutely.
So fun. And that's a wrap on another episode of And Then I Did This, celebrating the lives of those who've walked away from the beaten path to pursue work and a life that nourishes their soul. If you're feeling inspired and ready to explore your own path to freedom, check out youcanbefree.life, where you'll find resources and support to help you break free and live life on your own terms. See you next time.